Hello and welcome to Backyard Cigars. So glad that you could join me once again. And today we're going to smoke a revamped cigar that was originally released in 2009 and then re-released by General Cigars in 2016. Let's take a closer look at the cigar as it has had the blend revamp, the name, and the band. Let's take a look. Taking a closer look at the Toraño Exodus in its revamped band, which I'm not very fond of, really. I'm not. Slightly toothy. Looks pretty well filled. And when we look at this cigar, please keep in mind that it has been aged for 3 years. So just something to take into account. Sometimes the appearance and the sheen will vary depending on how long you've had it and at what humidity you've had it. I've had this at about the 65, 66 RH in my humidor for the last 3 years. So there you go. Carlos Toraño. Welcome to Backyard Cigars. Today I'm going to smoke a cigar that was originally released in 2009-2010 by the Toraño family cigar company and then was revamped. So we're looking at a cigar that has its blend revamped, and I just want to see, is it as good as it used to be? Is it better? Supposedly, here's the story. The Toraño family cigar company released the cigar, at the time, Carlos Toraño 1959 Exodus 50th year, and the 50 years representing the anniversary dating back to 1959 when they fled Cuba and during the early days of the revolution. So that was the original name of the cigar. When I had it, I think I had it in 2012, 2011. It was amazing. I loved it. And we're going to talk about the differences in the blend from then and now. But we're also going to talk about the fact why it changed. The reason it changed is because in 2014, only about 4 or 5 years after the release of this cigar, the Toraño family cigar company decided to sell their brands to General Cigars. Now, General Cigars felt that at first they said, everything will be the same, nothing will be changed. I think at some point, one of the family members, I think Charlie Toraño, joined General Cigars as well as sort of an ambassador, and who knows what else he did, but he certainly didn't prevent them from changing the brands. Now, the importance of them changing the brands goes back to the fact that the Toraño family has, for many, many years, kept a book on all of their blends. And a lot of them can be traced back to the early blends post-embargo, right? And these are blends that helped shape the palates of many smokers during this time as they were transitioning from Cuban tobacco to New World tobaccos. So the importance of their blends was paramount at a certain point. But time changes things, and palates change, right? And companies get sold. And blends do get revamped quite often, even by their own blenders. So it's nothing new. But with the Toraño family, they initially said they wouldn't touch them. They would leave them as is. Well, they decided that this one in particular, the Carlos Toraño 1959 Exodus 50 years, needed a name change, a band change, and a blend change. So 3 changes. Now I know they've made changes to other cigars within the brands of the Toraño family that the Toraño family once had, but I don't know specifically what changes. We're dealing with this one right now, so this one I know. Now, like I said, this is a cigar that I was very familiar with, the original version. The original version had a Brazilian Aripiraca. Yes, Aripiraca. Damn it, I know it and then I mess it up. But anyway, Arapiraca wrapper, and it had a binder from Honduras, and then the filler was from, I believe, 2 or 3 regions in Nicaragua, and yet the cigar was made in Honduras. So the new blend that was introduced by General Cigars in 2016 was a change to the wrapper. You've already seen the change to the band, or you've seen the band on this cigar when we take a closer look. But let me just tell you about the wrapper on this one. The wrapper on this one is going to be a Honduran wrapper. The binder on this is going to be a Connecticut broadleaf binder from the United States. And then the filler is Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Honduras. So 3 nations for the filler, as opposed to previously 1, which was Nicaragua. So now you've got Honduras, Mexico, and DR in the filler, with a Connecticut broadleaf binder and a wrapper from San Agustin in Honduras. Now, much is made about Honduran wrappers. They're when you get really good ones, you know it. And so that's one of the things that piqued my curiosity with this particular cigar. Now, I've had this cigar for 3 years in the humidor. I purchased this, I think it was mid 2021. Just never got around to it. Didn't age it intentionally. Actually bought a 5er, so I had a few back then. Mental notes, some, not many. But I remember it being a pretty decent cigar. But now I need a refresher, right? And I'm smoking it after 3 years. So we're gonna see if there are any differences with the age, of course, but more importantly, I just want to see if this cigar is better than the original. So this is a 5x54 Robusto. Some might say Robusto Grande, Robusto Gordo. So it's got a little bit more tobacco in it than your typical Robusto, but for all intents and purposes, I look at it as a very hefty Robusto with the 54 in gauge, and I rather like that. I like Robusto Gordos. The previous version of this cigar, I felt, was much more full-bodied. It was a full-bodied cigar. It's a bit more leathery, and so the strength difference is one of the things that my mental notes are already alarming me to, which is this is more medium, and the other one's full, right? So the Brazilian Arapiraca wrapper on it gave it a very distinct flavor. The fact that it was Nicaraguan, but choice Nicaraguan from these 2 regions, Pueblo Nuevo, I think, was one of them, and they just, it really worked, right? But General Cigars has, well, a history of buying cigar brands and making them their own. To some degree, they want to keep that profile in tune with what it used to be known for, but at the same time, they're aware that they can't always replicate that, and that they probably shouldn't try. So they don't, and they give us something new and something fresh, and a lot of times it works, and sometimes it doesn't. This, General Cigars, they are a giant of a tobacco company, of a cigar company, and whether you love them or hate them, I mean, one thing they don't stop doing is trying to innovate and just do new things and introduce new blends. There's a little spicy note that I'm getting just from the beginning of the cigar, a little spiciness. And there's some sweetness coming through. Some. Usually when I don't mention the draw, it's because it's A, just fine, or B, really not worth mentioning because there are no issues with it, right? So why mention it? But when it's really good, when it's a really good draw and I happen to like it, I'll mention that I like the draw. And in this case, I really like the draw on this cigar. I don't like the band, but I said that already, but I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of the band. So the band was changed. The original band was, I don't know, it seemed more legacy-like, right? It was kind of what the Toraño family represents, that legacy in what they've accomplished in the cigar industry. When we look at, and I'm not going to nerd out and tell you all about the Toraño family, but I will tell you this much. I think it is fitting that there is Dominican tobacco in the cigar because in 1959, when Carlos Toraño Sr. And he came over from Cuba to Miami, and then eventually he brought seeds with him, Cuban seeds, and he planted them in the Dominican Republic. And that was the birth of Piloto Cubano. Piloto Cubano, which is, as we know it, a great blending tobacco. It's mellow, it's smooth, it's mild to medium. It, like I said, it blends excellently, in an excellent way with a lot of different tobaccos. It's been used in puros. It's been used for binder. It's been used for filler, mainly filler, but it's one of those reliable tobaccos that you have in the Dominican Republic. And the Toraño family, of course, is key to getting that started. So far, I like it. So far, I like it. And like I said, I smoked this years ago, and I like to think that I remember what everything tastes like. I like to think that. But the truth is that as we get older, our memory starts to fade, and that internal memory card starts to delete things to make room for new things. And I do remember liking it. And whether I like it more or not, I'm going to save that for the end. I'm going to save that for the end, right? It's only fair that I wait to reveal whether I like that more, the original. But I'll tell you another thing that I don't like. The original cigar's name was Carlos Toraño, 1959, Exodus, 50 years. That's a mouthful. I was going to say a handful, but it's not a handful. It's a mouthful. That's a mouthful. shortening it down to Toraño Exodus. Okay, you know, that's fine and all. I would have still liked Toraño Exodus 1959, you know, to just still mark that year when they fled Cuba. I think that that's important with the word Exodus. But then again, that's just me, and I can be a stickler for, traditional things, and it really doesn't matter at the end of the day as long as the cigar tastes really good. And as for the band, well, you can always change the band, right? You can always improve that. How is the Mexican tobacco playing a role in this blend? I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I've had Mexican tobacco 3 or 4 times in my life. And I've had it, usually I've had it from Casa Turen. And it's usually been very good. It's slightly spicy and sweet, but that is a description that could be applied to quite a number of tobaccos, even Peruvian tobacco for that matter. So percentage wise, I don't even know how much Mexican tobacco is in the blend. It's in it, but how much of it, I don't know. I'm going to guess that the filler for this blend is primarily Dominican with Honduran. Honduran probably the second most tobacco in the filler, just from what I'm tasting. Just from what I'm tasting. And for 3 years, I still get a little bit of strength from the cigar. It's not mild, it's medium, but it's got a fiery flavor. What do I mean by that? Fiery flavor is that it's providing a boost of flavor in every puff that is very well put together. You get spiciness, you get sweetness, you get some smoothness, you get hints of oak, you get a number of things that I haven't really gotten that far into the cigar to give you everything that I'm tasting. But I will say this, that it is a flavor bomb. Even 3 years later, it is still a flavor bomb. Yeah, the aroma on the cigar is also very pleasing, which is a plus. I say that often, but I say it because I mean it. It's a special part for me. I know some people, when they're walking by a cigar shop or they're walking by someone that's smoking a cigar smokers, when we get a hint of that cigar aroma and it just hits our nostrils, it excites us and it makes us want to smoke a cigar, or it takes us back to a moment when we smoked a cigar and we really enjoyed it, or it becomes an aroma that captures our senses. So for me, I always like to point that out when it's a really good aroma. But I mentioned the flavor bomb thing, and I really mean that. I think that this is very flavorful, and that's a big plus here. The flavors on the finish are also very good. So they're holding their own as you puff and you swirl the smoke around, and as you let the smoke out, some of those flavors remain on the palate, and in the finish they carry well. So I mean, so far very good. It's hard to compare this cigar to the original. It's just so different to me. It is so different to me, and not in a bad way, but it's different. I remember the older version being more of a slow burner, whereas this one here has burned a lot faster than the previous version. But sometimes a cigar will start off a little fast and then it'll slow down, so that's not something that's concerning me, despite the fact that I believe the original was a 5x50, not a 5x54. So that was another difference. Apart from that, the only other difference is that this is made in Honduras, or was made in Honduras, and the original was made in Nicaragua. Now, the Toraño family, along with CAO and General Cigars, have kind of sort of been in bed for quite some time before General Cigars purchased the brands from the Toraño company. Because remember, General Cigar also bought up CAO from the Ostringer family. So they've kind of always had these dealings and close ties. That probably made it a lot easier for the Toraño family to sell their brands to General Cigars. Has age, the 3 years in the humidor, played a role here? It's hard to say, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb and just based off of the mental notes that I have, it's very flavorful, but a bit smoother. So that would be the one thing that I'm noticing, that some of the flavors are smoothed out. That's really it. But it has aged well, and that's important for me. That it has aged well, and that I'm still here enjoying it, smoking it. That's a big thing. That's a good thing. Ash has been holding up quite well. What else can I say about this cigar that I haven't said? I would say that you can't find it anymore. I don't think you can find this cigar anymore. Why am I reviewing a cigar that can't be found anymore? Because even though you can't purchase this right now, at least from my last check online, I couldn't find the old version, of course, although you'll see it'll say out of stock, and I couldn't find the new version. But that doesn't mean that General Cigars isn't going to reintroduce this at a later date, and possibly, maybe, with a different blend. Ladies and gentlemen, I have really enjoyed this cigar. I've been smoking it and just thinking to myself, is it as good as the original version? And I have an answer to that. You probably knew I was going to say this, right? But no, it is not as good as the original version. Nonetheless, it is still highly enjoyable, and it keeps the spirit alive, I feel, of the original blend. With the traces of pepper, with the sweetness added to it, which the original one had, but the original one had more cocoa notes, and this one has been more with oak notes, and has definitely been a different experience. So the main thing for me is the mingling of the sweetness with the spiciness in this particular cigar. That's what I've gotten more than anything. But I've also gotten a bit of cream. Now the original one also had a bit of cream, from what I can remember. So that's one of the components that I think in the flavor profile that has remained, where you have a little bit of that sweetness, although this is a different kind of sweetness, and you've had that creaminess with spiciness. The original one had a bit more pepper, whereas this one is more like spice notes and just an overall spiciness that would have probably been more pronounced had this cigar not been aged for 3 years. But you still get it on the finish, and a little bit up front. Sometimes at the beginning of the cigar, it was much spicier. And now as I'm in the final third heading towards an upstate, I'm realizing that although it's a different experience, it's still a highly enjoyable experience. Yeah, wonderful cigar. And if I can find more, I'll let you know if it's even available still, because I don't think I can. But if not, I would dare say that this is a cigar line that will be reintroduced in the future by General Cigars, and they'll probably revamp it again, give you a much splashier legacy-like band, and who knows, they may even go back to the original wrapper, the Brazilian Ariparaca, and keep the Dominican, of course. I think, and I do believe that adding a Connecticut broadleaf binder to this provided also some complexity to the blend. I'm no master blender, I'm just a taster here, but I'm liking what I tasted. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for watching. Till next time on Backyard Cigars.